My name's Joe Biden, and I want you to be out there buying the Professor Lovecraft. That's the thing, right?
Hello and welcome. In this video I'm going to be talking about the TV show Willow and whether it deserved the treatment it got from Disney+, who cancelled the show after one season and then deleted it from all streaming services, apparently considering it too embarrassing to ever see the light of day, or just more valuable as a tax write-off than as an actual product. Which sounds shady enough that it should be illegal, but that's probably a discussion better had further away from Disney's lawyers. The series follows on an indeterminate number of years after the movie of the same name that was released to worldwide disinterest in 1988. The film starred Warwick Davies, famous for being Wicket in Return of the Jedi, as a young farmer sent to meet a distant wizard in order that they could protect a baby from an evil sorcerer. The story was by George Lucas, who might well have been borrowing something that J.R.R. Tolkien once wrote on his toilet roll during a particularly arduous dump, but it's equally questionable whether George Lucas, after this, would ever make a better movie. Ron Howard was directing. I remember actually liking this film as a youngster for its Lucas energy, while even then acknowledging in my preteen years that it wasn't very well made or written, and it had some very ropey special effects. I liked Joanne Whalley, and I especially liked Val Kilmer, who I thought was on a fast train to charismatic leading man status that only being in films like Willow might derail. But these two were more annoying than even people eating nachos in a cinema deserve. Despite that, Willow earned and deserves its cult status for being one of a handful of fantasy films from the 80s that wasn't particularly embarrassing. I'm not sure it earned or deserved a sequel, and it certainly didn't deserve the sequel that it got. After a prologue that recounts the events of the first film and explains that afterwards Willow had a vision about an ancient evil that would rise in the future and destroy the future Empress, they decided to hide Elora away as a peasant girl. Willow, the series, then begins with these two masked figures fighting on these rocks. Of course, anytime you see masked figures fighting in a movie, it is just so that the actors can have a day off and let their stunt doubles do their thing. But it's also so that they can then be revealed as girl bosses. Though it's hard to say whether Disney were truly trying to hide that they were girls in this instance. Surely Erin Kellyman must have pointed out that she had the exact same pointless reveal in Solo. Either way, before the masks came off, I kind of suspected that both would be women and that they'd both be lesbians before the series was out. Though in 2023, that's a bit like betting on the favourite. And with 2023 Disney, it's a one-horse race. Erin plays Jade, who despite losing the duel to Kit, is going to be a warrior. Kit can't be a warrior because she's a princess. Ruby Cruz, who plays Kit, brilliantly succeeds in making her genuinely unlikable, subverting the Disney princess trope expertly. She sounds like Buffy the Vampire Slayer, but she behaves like Cordelia. But this is the first scene, and probably the last one, where she isn't moaning or complaining about someone or something. Kit dreams of going beyond the barrier, previously unmentioned, and having wild adventures, but the Queen summons her to do princessly things, which she resents because her brother Eric should do those things. But Eric is off in a field sharing Joss Whedon's cast-off banter with a serving girl, in the moment where Willow is closest to being watchable, because these two are actually okay together, and neither is especially troubling to the eye, though with these two as well, this is starting to look and sound like Willow 90210, especially when their medieval town looks like this. But the prince and the princess are summoned to the Queen because King Hastur is arriving with a big retinue for a party. His son is going to marry Kit and reunite the two kingdoms. Jade is invited to that party, but she doesn't like dresses. But Kit is about to reveal that she doesn't like anyone or anything. Get used to this happy, friendly face because Jade wears it throughout the rest of the series, or at least how much of it I've seen. She dislikes Prince Hastur, her future husband, because he likes reading and is quiet, and he doesn't like wine, and he cannot possibly be a suitable choice for a girl boss. There's some exposition about how the barrier keeps out the bad guys, only it isn't, though the king insists that it is. They covered this 10 years ago in Legend of the Seeker, if you're wondering where Kasdan gets all his ideas from. Prince Eric is flirting with the visiting duchesses, which he seems quite good at, much to serving girls' dismay. When Kit learns that Jade is going to be a warrior, she's determined to confront her future husband, and Kasdan's grasp of genre and character is demonstrated when he writes the line, "So we're getting married. That's weird, right?" And she then makes a big scene about being a great fighter who shouldn't be valued for her looks and status. She belittles Eric when he tries to stop her, and the Queen takes her away to have a little row. Eric arrives saying he's had a chat with Hasta and that he thinks he's smoothed things over. The Queen then belittles him, telling him not to get involved in things he's incapable of understanding and that are not his concern, even though, as royalty, that would seem like his job. And he just did it, by all accounts, and successfully too, and in double quick time, because he was only off screen for 10 seconds. Kit then berates the prince too, because trying and succeeding and helping is a terrible thing to do to a princess. Yeah, we still see a lot of this face. She hates Eric because she thinks he'll leave just like their dad. That's Mad Mardigan from Willow, if you're wondering, and he apparently went to fight evil on their behalf and is now presumed dead, which in Kasdan Princess brain means he's an absentee dad, the bastard. Eric is then bullied by his serving girl because she's jealous and also a little bit psychotic. And it really is only because these two are quite good together that it stops this from being utterly insufferable. Even Joanne Whalley, who is the eldest statesman on screen and off, does a decent job, but she struggles with the material here, flip-flopping between calm and anger depending on whether Kit needs to storm out of the scene or not. Eric, though, is going to propose to his serving girl, and he says, "What if I was ready to commit? I know it's not the greatest marriage proposal of all time, but what if it was better?" A line so Buffy that you assume Whedon himself rejected it because it was too corny to use on any of the actresses he was abusing on set. Kit goes to tell Jade that she's running away, but then monsters attack, there's a fight, and the girl bosses are holding their own while everyone else dies. In comes Eric, needing to be belittled, and he's told to stay behind this old guy because he's no good at fighting or diplomacy. The old guy asks, "Would it be too much to ask for you not to do anything stupid?" And the answer is yes, because somehow they're separated even though they're only 2 feet apart. Enter yet another girl boss, the Queen, who fights along with the other girls while Hasta, the future husband, watches very suspiciously from an upstairs window while Eric is kidnapped. Jade is pinned against the wall and rescued by this guy, who cuts the monster's arm off and says, "Oh, I know, I'm sorry, you were totally going to let go of her." Because Jonathan Kasdan was doing lines of coke that day and the intern had to write all his dialogue. Even though they were going to win easily, the monsters leave because they've taken Eric. There's nothing else for it but for a band of heroes to form in order to rescue him. It will definitely need Jade and Kit, who doesn't have any more pressing engagement on her wedding day and whose royal status hasn't just doubled in value now. She's the only survivor of the Queen's family, along with the Queen. And of course they'll need this guy. And the old guy, who may as well get himself a red uniform, he has to go because he informs the head of the guard that he can't because he has more important duties. They presumably don't extend to protecting the princess, and she clearly has no duties at all. The Queen described her warrior training as playing earlier, but now she thinks that she's the best guy to rescue the prince. If I didn't know better, I'd believe she genuinely didn't want Eric back. Hasta has to go as well, I guess. He has something to prove, or he's up to something. Either way, he's not getting married that day, or coming back from the quest alive. But when Hasta is volunteered by his father, Kit says, "You know, I think we're good because this is the Daikini High School, and she's Queen Cheerleader. Even though she clearly knows nothing about Hasta, he might be the finest warrior or sorcerer in the kingdom for all she knows. She believes that he only has that pesky book learning, and nobody needs any of that, not even scriptwriters in Hollywood." But at least we get this look from the oh-so-likeable Kit. Thraxus, played by Amar Chandra Patel, is the absolute worst. He won't stop talking, and only Kasdan's intern thinks anything that comes out of his mouth is funny. If he goes on the quest, the Queen says, all his crimes will be forgotten. And he replies, even the one in the haberdashery with, "You know, I just like the feel of velvet." They'll need a sorcerer, of course, by the name of Willow, of course, so they'll have to go to the Nelwyn land. They think they're being followed, and they are, by a kitchen girl who also wants to find Eric. "Have you ever been in a fight?" Kit asks. "You mean like verbally?" Kitchen girl replies. Kitchen Girl wins them over by cooking. While she does that, Kit berates Hasta because he's brought a flute with him. The bastard! After some obvious exposition about what the barrier is, they're attacked by Reavers, who really do look like they belong in a Saturday morning cartoon. Our heroes jump off a cliff and swim to the other side of the river, which is either a really long way away, or the cliffs disappear after they've left them, because this is what the world behind them looks like. But they do eventually meet Willow after an imposter gets the chance to say some more 2023 dialogue, maybe 2018. Willow reveals both himself and the identity of the missing Elora Danan. You might foolishly assume that it's the ginger one, but Kasdan pulls the genius plot twist of it being the blonde one. On to the second episode of the series, which is where I noped out of it. I don't even want to milk the rest of it for YouTube content. Kit and Jade are relegated to scene dressing from this point. Kit just glaring snarkily and moaning about stuff occasionally. In flashbacks that show him falling out with the Queen, Warwick Davies sports this facial hair, which in any other show would be the most unforgivable thing about it. Here, it's not even top 10. I do have a soft spot for Warwick Davies because he was in Return of the Jedi and Extras, but he really struggles here. He's pretty good with the family stuff, but when he's asked to dump exposition, it's clear he's just not up to it. Whalley is far more experienced and handles it better, which just makes him look all the more wooden. The first exposition dump is a 3-minute long film. It is painful, especially because Davies will simply repeat all of his content later when he's talking to Alara. Davies is much better in the scenes with his daughter, who really gives her all. I mean, really gives her all. Willow does his Sorcerer of the Village bit in a scene that lasts 5 minutes long, but the equivalent scene in the movie lasts 30 seconds, so they can't say they didn't have an example to learn from. Like so much of this episode, it's akin to pulling teeth. Warwick Davies seems to be channeling David Brent from somewhere, which is an extremely questionable choice, but the scene is played very poorly for laughs, and everyone and everything in it is awkward and uncomfortable, which may well work in The Office, but not in a fantasy series, when it's completely at odds with the tone of everything that's happened before. Willow wants to train Elora to be a wizard, but she wants to leave and save Eric. Willow instead agrees to go with them, so they travel to the Forbidden City or whatever, and Willow tries to teach her magic words, but he's an idiot, and so is she, and this goes on and on and on and on. Thraxus, unfortunately, is given some lines for no reason beyond a horribly contrived backstory dump, made doubly awkward because nobody in their right mind would want to just make random small talk with the vile Kit. Elora is wandering around on her own, even though it's really dangerous, and after she's kidnapped, it is revealed that she finally did say magic words that worked. Episode 2 is truly painful and a waste of time. It could easily be 10 minutes long. Elora joins the ranks of utterly insufferable characters, but the series has no shortage of them, and when she does that, Willow has literally nothing to recommend it. Even the theme tune to this episode is stunningly bad, a really, really dull cover of Donovan's Hurdy-Gurdy Man. Like much of the show, it's horrible and it's out of place. After watching Willow, I think that part of Lawrence Kasdan's fee for writing the bits and pieces of the Star Wars sequel trilogy was that Lucasfilm find work for his idiot son. Jonathan Kasdan is credited here as a writer, with development, and as an executive producer, but surely somebody at some point noticed that this is unwatchable. My concern is that I'm actually wrong about the scale of nepotism, and that this is even more nefarious because Disney got taxpayer money in 4 different countries to pay for this, tax breaks and public money. Then they almost immediately pulled it and wrote it off as a product in order to get more tax breaks in a different country. There is something utterly foul in that level of corruption and a disgraceful waste of public money. Taxpayer money funded this. It funded this purely to line the Kasdan's pockets and about a dozen other producers as well. They did okay out of it, but the show was beginning and end a tax scam. So it's not just an utterly dreadful show written and created by talentless morons. It is quite literally stealing from the poor to give to the rich. Willow might not be as despicable as the corruption behind it, but it still deserved the treatment it got,